Well, the Senate Judiciary Committee is set to vote tomorrow on the nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, as a new poll shows most Americans support her confirmation. Let's bring in Guy Benson, host of The Guy Benson Show. It's good to see you, Guy. I want to point to that poll one more time again. 51% favor not confirming Judge Barrett. You see there, 46% not in favor. That 46% number is interesting because it is the highest against number in the history of Gallup's Supreme Court polling, which goes back to 1987. Is that kind of the fuel for the fire that Democrats are using to try and block this? Does that give them motivation, Guy?
Yeah, and I would point out that you're right that the negative numbers are high, but the positive number in favor of confirmation, as you say, is a majority, higher than we saw with Kavanaugh, higher than we saw with Gorsuch or Kagan. So that's a strong number for Judge Barrett. And it's not the only poll, by the way, that has Barrett at 51% in favor of her confirmation. There's a new poll out this morning, Morning Consult, that's been tracking this now for weeks. And what's interesting to me, Trace, about that particular survey is when Barrett was announced back in late September, she was at +3, right? So above water, but barely. She is now in the new poll up in a +23 zone, with independents favoring her confirmation by 20 points. So the more the American people have seen of Judge Barrett, heard from Judge Barrett, the more they like her and the more they're persuaded that she ought to be on the court. And per your last guest, Ted Cruz, I think that's going to happen very soon.
Yeah, and you make a great point there, because I want to bring up that poll for independents. And this is really what caught my eye, is in favor, independents, 52%. That, by the way, was only beaten by John Roberts and Sonia Sotomayor. So that is a huge number of independents in support of Amy Coney Barrett. What does that tell you about this confirmation process, Guy?
That persuadable people have been persuaded. She's a superb choice. She's eminently qualified. She performed splendidly at the hearings, and people noticed. So whether it's the Morning Consult poll that I mentioned or the Gallup poll that you're showing, independents and the American people have shifted significantly in favor of her confirmation. There's even been some movement among some Democrats tugging in that direction as well. I would also note, Trace, that, and this is a lot of polling to be talking about, but the New York Times had a poll out just yesterday on a bunch of subjects, including this one, and they asked the American people, should this confirmation vote happen before the election or only after the election? Democrats have been arguing now for weeks and weeks that this ought to happen after the election, and now by an 8-point margin, the American people disagree. They think that the confirmation vote should happen before the election, which it's going to. So it really strikes me, Trace, that if you look at the arc of this confirmation process, the Democrats have tried to argue that it's not constitutional. That's Joe Biden's term. That's flatly false. It's clearly constitutional what's going on. The historical precedent, the historical norms here are right on target with what the Republicans are doing with this filling of the seat. And the last vestige, really, of the Democrats in terms of a compelling argument was the American people don't want this. The American people are against her. The American people feel like this vote is too soon. And now you have polling that shows even that final argument that they're trying to make no longer applies. They are left with nothing.
And I want to get this in there because you mentioned the New York Times poll. It also shows in that poll, talking about court packing, 58% opposed to packing the court, only 31% in favor. It appears to be a losing issue. Why won't Joe Biden just come out and declare his position?
Great question. He should. It's a 2-to-1 margin almost in that New York Times poll. The American people against court packing, independents, that important swing group, against it by 40 points, a 40-point margin in that poll. I've now seen 3 major surveys nationwide ask on this question and probe the American people on court packing. And guess what? The number in support, the percentage in support of court packing across all 3 polls has been 31, 31, and 32%. A small minority. It's a political loser. Joe Biden should say, we're not going to do it because the American people very clearly don't want it.
In this day and age, that's a big number. Guy Benson, always good to see you. Thank you.